questions that you have, and I'll be happy to answer these questions. So while I take you through a bit about what we do as a company, while I understand many of you might know what Franchise India does and might have been part of our exhibition events or might have interacted with somebody at different levels. If you're looking to start a business, I'll be happy to take any questions. I'll also request if you can share a brief about yourself, which is your profile, which city you come from. And there are four things, friends, which I'll request you to please put in the Q&A box so I know where all our friends have joined in today. So I'd like to know which city are you currently from, based out of from, and the business where you want to start. Second is the industry that interests you. So which can be as broad as F&B, retail, if you want to mention that, or it can be as precise as the subcategory. For example, if you're looking at food, you can be precise as a coffee shop or a QSR or a lounge. If you're looking at something in the education segment, it can be training, skill development. So go as precise as you would want to. And third is the investment perhaps you want to make. That is very, very important. And fourth is the timeline within which you want to make the investment. So I'll request all of you, if you can start with putting these comments in the Q&A box. I'll repeat once again. I'd like to know the city that you come from, the industry that you're interested in. Third is the overall investment that you're looking to make in the business. And fourth is what is the timeline for you to invest in the business, which can be maybe a month or 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So whatever that time frame for you is, please go ahead and write that. And if you can also give me a little introduction about yourself, if you're already a business owner running a franchise or a professional, that will help me in understanding your background. So friends, while you do that, let me give you an introduction of our company. So thank you so much. So I see Mr. Ashok Kumar from Narela. So welcome, Ashokji. You are currently in the business of export and import trading. Great. So friends, I'll request if you can use, in fact, the Q&A box will be easier for me to interact and see all the questions in sequence. So friends, at Franchise India, we've been in the industry for the last 27 years, and we understand that today a business buyer needs a lot of insights. So if you look at the data, this data is available, including the website of Franchise India, including a lot of forums that we do, our webinars, which we conduct every single day. But the most important element in deciding important decision of your lifetime is to get a lot of insights on that industry, the category, the brand at large, which in most of the cases is missing. And that is something which restricts most of the investors to get into something which is as important as starting a business in your life, right? So it is not just product information. We understand you need a lot of insights which equip you with a lot of analytics, which help you take an informed decision of starting a business. And we also understand that buying a business is one of the most difficult decisions of a lifetime, and it requires a thorough research. It requires understanding of various dynamics, which can help you make your business a very successful venture. So it is important that you invest in a business that you've known enough, you've studied enough. And this was the grounds for us to come out with this particular webinar series, which is called Investor Advantage. So how a prospective business buyer like you can be at an advantage of starting a business and taking a responsible decision to get into a business. So this session will give you guided assistance in the entire buying process, as we understand the buying takes time, and any investor who's looking to start a business moves through a series of purchasing cycle in their buying process, and they also educate themselves in order to move very closer to the final decision, which can be anything, I would say 30 to 90 days on an average. So being an investor-centric and a franchise-focused company, our endeavor has always been to advise business buyers on business opportunities. But most importantly is how do you evaluate what is the right fitment of these opportunities for you. So at Franchise India, like I said, we have a strong team. We have been in the industry for last 27 years. We are currently present in 97 cities in India. So which would also mean any city that you come from, I will have my local team, consultants and advisors that perhaps can meet with you. They can brainstorm opportunities, understand your investment goals, and they can work closely with you to understand and guide you through the entire process. So through these many years, we have in fact worked with more than 10 million investors. And these are people where we have guided these investors, entrepreneurs to start a business, which is as small as I would say maybe a 10, 15 lakhs kind of investment, or even as large as somebody who wants to take the master franchise rights of global brands and bringing the entire brand to India, taking the entire ownership of running the operations of the brand. And we've also worked with more than 20,000 companies to help them expand their footprint. So, when we started in 1999, the franchise community in India was very, very small. We had handful of 300 companies. That point in time, they were franchising. Fast forward these 27 plus years, today there are 20,000 companies that FranCorp, our consulting arm of Franchise India, has consulted and brought into franchising for the very first time. And we are also humbled to have worked with this ever growing community of entrepreneurs like yourself, who I would say today is a very evolved community. And at the same time, we also take pride in working with some of the most credible, trusted companies, enterprises, corporates, startups, unicorns, whom we have worked to develop their sustainable business models. And also, we have worked with them to develop their entire franchise network, not only in India, but also international markets through our presence in 19 odd countries. So, friends, what I'll do is I'll take you through a small, understanding. Like I said, I'll talk about the franchise industry, how big the industry is. I'll talk about the most important assessment tools which any business buyer must undertake when starting a business. So, when you look at starting a business, there are only three ways perhaps you could do that. One is your own startup, which is your own business. You can have your own business that you can start by yourself. Second is you can buy something which is, or a business which is already existing, which means you take over the ownership of a business from somebody, which is called secondary sales of business or resales of business. And third is you buy a franchise business of any brand or industry at large. So at Franchise India, we work on the last two. So we work with you to help you take franchise, dealership, distribution of any brands which are currently into franchising. We also work with our entrepreneurs to help them take an existing profitable running business. And when I say franchise business, today a lot of companies are also running their company operated outlets, and these are profitable running locations which they're operating across different geographies, different industries. And these locations, outlets, brands, they're also now willing to transfer these locations to franchisees. So which we called as a build, operate, and transfer model. Now, when I talk about franchising is a very big impact industry because everything that we're consuming today is coming from a franchise ecosystem. Franchising cuts across every industry, and we all would agree that we have seen successful franchise companies across all sectors. And overall, at the global level, in system sales, franchising is a $5 trillion industry, which is a very large industry, much higher than the GDP of India. And India is in one of the most, I would say, prime positions today because the strong economic fundamentals of a domestic consumption is something which has always kept franchising, at a very fast pace. So franchising today will grow. What we have seen the last almost 10 odd years, which also makes India now the second largest franchise market in the world after America. And franchising in India since 2013 to I would say 2023, 24, we saw a fourfold growth in the overall industry. And today the size of industry about is $180 billion. Now, franchising in the next 10 years will grow much faster than what it grew in the last 10 years. So it is now positioned to grow at a pace of 10x in the next 10 years. And a majority of this growth today is attributed to first-time entrepreneurs. So when we started our company way back in 1999, the overall first-time business buyer community was very, very small. So when I say a first-time business buyer community, these are people who are looking to start a business for the very first time. So out of 100 franchisees that we would award, only 20% of these franchisees came with experience of running either their own business or some form of distribution, dealership, or franchise business. Today, our 60% of our profile of partners who are looking and even taking franchisees, these are first time entrepreneurs who comparatively don't come with experience of running any business. So the community of or I would say the new community which is coming into franchising is this first time entrepreneurs. And second thing which I like to talk about, because these are very important dynamics which are important to understand to see how the overall increment in the industry of franchising is actually happening. Second area is when we look at consumption, I touched upon consumption. India has a very strong consumption history, very interesting and very, very big, which has also made and always made our economy very, very resilient because of the massive consumption engine that we've had. And today there is a big formalization of consumption. So when I say formalization of consumption, it means that the consciousness of consuming a brand, the demand for branded product and services have increased multifold than the last I would say 20, 25 years. What we saw maybe 22 years back was modernization of retail with product industry. It is now the time for modernization of service industry, which is also becoming branded. So from the laundry services that we use at our home to direct to consumer healthcare services to quick commerce services like Zepto, Swiggy. These are all services today which has become branded. And finally, which I like to touch upon, is also the legacy of entrepreneurship in India. Franchising and entrepreneurship are very proportionate to each other. And we also understand that the opportunity is as big as the nation and the diversity we have in India. And being a shopkeeper nation, today we have every home which has somebody who has an aspiration of starting a business at some point of time in their lives. So with this, friends, I'll take you through very quickly some of the most assessment criteria which every investor must undertake before starting a business. And these assessment tools, I would say, should become the foundation of your selection. We understand starting a business is something which is not easy, but even more difficult is building a successful business, which is a bigger challenge than even starting a business. And successful investment in any business venture is all about clarity, it is about alignment, and also preparation for starting a business. So, for the first time business buyer, the journey is even filled with more questions, uncertainties, and the need for informed decision making, hence, is even much larger. So, to help you support in this journey, at Franchise India, we have in fact developed a very holistic framework that enables qualitative evaluation across five core dimensions. And when I say these five core dimensions, these have come with our experience of working with millions of investors, helping them and guiding them through the entire process of buying a business. So these five assessment tools is first and foremost your own self-assessment as an entrepreneur. Second is the assessment of the industry that you want to get in. Third is the market where you want to start a business. And fourth is the competition assessment, which means the competition in the same industry category versus the brand that you have selected. And finally comes the assessment of the brand that you want to sign. So these five are very, very important dynamics, or I would say assessment tools, which every potential or aspiring entrepreneur should undertake. So I'll give you some understanding of each of these, starting with self-assessment. I personally feel your business is only as strong as your own clarity of what you want to achieve, and self-assessment is the most valuable tool for aspiring entrepreneurs. So the key aspects here, which are to be considered first and foremost, is your own mindset as an entrepreneur. So this is a step, I would say the first step, where a lot of inner re-engineering is to be done at your level. And so successful business is not just about return on investment, but what value you as an entrepreneur can bring in building the business. How are you going to sustain the business? What problem you're solving? So you need to do a little deep dive in terms of understanding your own mindset. Second is you have to align your financial goals and your life goals. So when I say your financial goals and your goals of life, there are three elements here which are very important to be understood. And I call them the TRR rule, which is T stands for time. The second R stands for risk. And third, which is R stands for return. So what it means that what risk and what return are you expecting from the investment that you have taken? So timeline to achieve the overall financial goal. So it can be a short term, it can be mid-term or a long-term goal. And so when you look at investment in any asset classes, it can be passive investment classes or active investment classes like active businesses that we run. There are only three fundamental goals that we look at. One is safety of our capital, our investment. Second is the income generation. And third is high growth from our investment that we do. These are the only three fundamental goals. Now, when we look at these three fundamental goals, proportionately, our risk and reward are also very proportionate to these goals. So if I'm looking at safety as my fundamental goal, the risk I'm taking on the investment is comparatively less or low. And the return absolutely has to be low, because if my risk is low, my return on the investment is also low. And I'm sure we all would agree, even in the traditional investment assets like the FDs that we do, it has safety on the investment that we have done. But our returns do not even catch up the inflation, but it keeps your capital secure and gives you very small returns because your entire capital investment is safe. Second is income, which means you will take a moderate risk on the investment and the returns are also moderate. And third is growth, which is a goal where you look at business which gives you high return, but equally have a little high risk which is involved. And similarly, when you classify different franchise models and formats and the way the business models are done, they keep into consideration these three elements. And that is the reason. So a lot of businesses give you security, they de-risk the investor risk. So when the company is de-risking your risk, they also would keep the upside because they're de-risking your downside. So we can have a separate perhaps meeting. If you're looking at specific opportunities, our teams can in fact discuss with you in different formats in franchising which are available. So this is the first step, I would say, which is your own mindset as an entrepreneur, which is very important to be understood. And second is assessment of the industry. Here, I would say there are a lot of industries which are operating today. Not every performing industry might be right for you. I'm not saying it is not right. These are all industries which are thriving, doing great. And like I said, we have businesses across various industries which are successful and doing well. But not every performing industry might not be the right fitment for you because your investment goals, your return goals, your time to put in the business, and your fitment, to run a business will be very different from one individual to the other. So you need to evaluate overall the industry trends, which means understand where the industry currently stands, maybe the growth in terms of the next 5 years, what it is projected to be. At the same time, also important to evaluate the historical patterns, any recent disruptions which have come in the industry, and what are the future shifts that are likely to support the industry that you want to get in. So that is one. Second is we need to look at the prospects of growth and the demand supply gap in that particular industry. So assess whether market demand outpaces supply. So in case it does, then you're creating opportunity in the market where you want to start the business. And if the market is already overcrowded, we already have a lot of players who are almost delivering something similar, then it causes margin pressure if your business does not have anything which is a differentiator or is bringing something which is innovative to the market. So this is one important area you should all look at. And then comes the assessment of the market, which includes things like overall total addressable market for the brand category industry that you have selected. So which means how big is my consumer or my target audience? How big is the overall size? And second is when you're looking at a brand, at what stage is the business at, right? Today, a lot of new companies are coming in. They start from a stage where they start creating clusters in their home market, and then they start creating clusters maybe in a bigger region and they go pan-India. So these stages can be at an incubation stage to a growth stage to, I would say, a hyper scale stage companies. So depending on the stage at which different businesses are, the companies also choose a different strategy to enter the market. And at different life cycles of a brand, the companies choose a different strategy to enter a particular market. So all that is something which is very important to be understood. And second is the regulatory landscape, which means the licenses, compliances that are required to run a particular business, which include license like maybe a liquor policy license in your state. It could be a drug license that you need to run a pharmacy, a food license that you need to run a restaurant. So every state has their regulations because regulatory landscape has both center and state as a subject. So you need to study what your state guidelines are. And the company also works with you to advise them on the same. And then comes the real estate and the location strategy, which you should adopt. So the thumb rule that we follow and we advise our investors to follow when choosing a real estate is always choose a location where you have your closest competition already present. So there could be example, let me give you. If you are looking for doing a cafe outlet in your market, look at the top competitions which are present in that market, which is closest to you, right? Which is closer to the competition of the brand that you're looking at. Look at which are the locations the competition is already present. So there might be 10 locations your competition is present. Out of these 10 locations, which is a top performing markets or spots or locations where the brand is performing best. So when you open next to them, your possibility, probability of becoming successful would be very high. So I'll give an example. So Franchise India also, while we advise and work with all companies looking to expand. We are also master franchise partners for 60 brands from 25 international markets. So this week we launched our brand, which is a coffee shop company. It is a brand from Austria. They currently operate in about 11 countries and have 150 plus locations already running. So this week we, in fact, are announcing on the Saturday, which is 2 days from now, our first formal launch of this outlet in India. The location that we opened is just next to Starbucks, Nick Baker's on Punjabi Park Club Road. And this is the most prime location. All the top cafe brands are already doing phenomenally well in that location. In fact, we have not done a formal launch. We have just done a soft launch, but our performance in that market is extremely great. We're getting a good response in the market. And then comes the fourth area, which is your competition assessment, right? So competition would mean what advantage you have over the competition, which is already present in the market, which could be depending on the stage of the company. Today, brands are offering a different go-to market for their partners. So what is the go-to market support which particular brand is offering? What is the support structure, training structure, from the brand which is being given to our partners? Look at how the brand has performed in the market. So when you look at the performance of a brand, always look at the performance in different markets across different times. So even different locations, for example, a high street or mall, depending on the format the brand is expanding in, would also give you different throughput. So understand what markets the brand is performing well, the average performance in different formats for a particular brand. That will give you understanding of the average business efficiencies of a brand in different markets over a period of time. So these two are very, very important when you look at competition assessment. And then comes finally the assessment of the brand. Here you need to look at overall, I would say, the people who are behind the company, the founders' legacy, the story, the commitment of the brand to their franchise partners. Second is how standardized are their systems and processes, because it is very important for a business to have their SOPs defined and written down, because operational efficiency is extremely important for you to scale the business. It helps a franchise partner to reduce deviation. It is easy for you to replicate the business. And as businesses start growing, eventually scaling, they need to be more and more process oriented. So that's very, very critical, because all the agreements which you sign with your brand, they all have an important clause that you will follow the SOPs given by the company. So this standardization of the overall process is something which is very, very important. Third is to understand the overall operating cost in the business. So most of the times when I speak to investors, I mostly see them talking about the initial investment. They sometimes negotiate on the royalties or the margins or the fee structure. But very rarely I see them going very deep to understand the operating cost in the business, which is a very crucial investment, right? So this is a monthly, I would say, expense that you have to run and operate the business. So you need to go very deep to understand the micro unit economics of a business, which means what is my cost of operating the business, which includes elements like my cost of real estate. And there are certain benchmarks. There's a scientific way where we work with our investors to help them, understand this micro unit economics. So what kind of real estate would work? What should be my rent to sales ratio? What should be my per square feet efficiency from the location I want to run? Your royalty, your margin structure, the cost of the staff which is being hired, your cost of marketing. So all that becomes very, very important, and how every year these costs are escalated. So which means that, maybe 1 year I'm paying a certain rental, but second year, third year, my rental, my cost of salaries also escalate. So is my business giving me proportionate, increment in the business as my increment in the cost of operating expenses? So that is one. And then comes the overall understanding of the margins in the business and the return on the investment. So return on investment is also very, very subjective. So most of the time, I personally feel most of the people I have met and advised, they have little clarity on the ROI. And one thing which most of us don't understand is how the ROI is calculated. So when we look at different businesses, the ROI is a function of the life of the opportunity. So bigger the life of the opportunity, your return is calculated proportionate to that. So if I give an example of businesses like maybe a super specialty hospital or a five-star hotel or even a K-12 school, if you look at the life of these opportunities, is very, very large. We have not seen any K-12 schools being shut. We have not seen any super specialty hospitals being shut. They all keep running. In fact, from the schools that we have all passed out, these schools are still running for many, many years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. So our ROI is very proportionate to how long my life of the opportunity is. So businesses which have a longer horizon, typically the return on investment is anything I would say from 5 to 10 odd years. And other businesses where on an average my agreement term with the company say 5 odd years, it takes almost about 2.5 to 3 years for any business to give you return on the investment, which means averagely you get about 25 to 30% return annualized, where year one would comparatively be smaller because it takes at least 1 year to 2 years, depending on the category that you've invested, for your business to optimize. So go very deep to understand the margin structure, your operating cost in the business, the return on the investment. And finally comes the legal agreement, which is extremely critical because India works on a British contract. We work on contract law in India. So everything that becomes a part of the contract becomes a binding between the partners. So at Franchise India, we have a separate team, which is Fran Legal, that works with our investors who we help them to get the entire agreement, and we help them to even negotiate these agreements with the company. So these are important areas, friends, which I wanted to talk about. Now, what kind of solutions we as a company give to our investors? Like I said, we've been working with our investor community for the last more than 2.5 decades. So we have this tried and tested stage advisory process, as I would call, which goes through 3 stages. Where the first stage is, I would say, the stage of exploration. So if you're first time in the business, exploring businesses, the first stage is to explore different opportunities. This stage is the stage of information. You need to understand your own fitment based on the 5 analysis tools which I talked about. Learn about the opportunities which are aligned with your strength and goals. And there are 4 primary fits that you should take a calculation. So you need to calculate, the 4 primary fits. And this is what my teams at Franchise India and consultants also do. So these 4 fitments include first and foremost strategic fit. So which means what do you bring on the table when you look at a business opportunity outside the investment you want to invest. So this could be a professional experience, it could be education or some skill set that you think would match with the business that you want to take. Second is the operational fitment, which means how many number of hours you have to get involved in the business. And different industries would have different time involvement, especially knowledge-centric industries need 100% of your time. So skill development, coaching, these kind of businesses, advisory businesses, if you take any franchise, businesses need 100% of your time. So how much of time do you have to put in the business becomes our second level of your filtration of what businesses would be right for you. And third is a market fit, which means what location, what city you want to open the business. So what companies are looking to roll out in that market, what market you want to open, and what opportunities can be most strategically fitting in that market is something that we analyze. And then comes the financial fitment, which means the investment that you want to make, and alongside the working capital that you have to put in the business. So we do 4 filter assessment, and based on these 4 filters, our teams then work with you to create and curate opportunities which are shared with you. And then comes stage 2, which is explanation, where we go deeper to understand these selected opportunities. Discovery day with these companies, brands are organized at their office, at their outlets. And there's an in-depth brand session, which along with the brand leadership teams and along with our teams at Franchise India, we take you through that. And then comes stage 3, which I would say is most crucial, which is a stage of personalization. And now this stage requires a customized deal structuring. So if you're looking for an area developer, your deal structuring would be different depending on the opportunity that you're looking at. Our teams work with you to structure the entire deal. We work with you in planning the territory and also help you finally sign the letter of intent and the agreement. So from stage 1 to exploring these opportunities based on what is the best fitment for you, to helping you do discovery days, to finally help you sign the agreement. So these are 3 stages which our teams work with you. And like I said, anything from 30 to 90 days is the average time any investor business buyer takes. But one thing which is very important is we work with only committed investors because this is a very value-driven engagement. We specialize in helping you take an informed decision, confident decision to start a business. And our process, the entire process which I talked about, is designed to support you end to end, from discovering of suitable opportunities to evaluation, which is very, very important. And then comes the final signing up. So in order to maintain the effectiveness, seriousness of our work, integrity and quality of our work, we only engage with registered investors who value time of Franchise India and my consultants who are engaged through the entire process. And this registration reflects your seriousness and intent, which also allows us, our teams, to dedicate our expertise, our time, bring validated learning to you, our resources, which then guide you through this high involvement process of starting a business. So, friends, this is what I had to share with you. And I will also request if you, I see some comments, I'll also request if we, uh, maybe Bharat, if you're there, we can share our webinar at 12 o'clock. So we have a webinar, friends, that we're doing today at 12 o'clock. Every single day, Franchise India brings to you a new opportunity which is being launched in the market. And today we have a webinar which is starting in the next, I would say, 25 odd minutes. So I'll request, even if that industry does not interest you, I would strongly recommend you should educate yourself on different businesses, different formats, different industries, how business model operates. And that makes you more, I would say, aware and, put you in a position where you can ask the right questions. So I've also shared, Friends, my email ID and contact number. You can WhatsApp me or reach out to me. And post this webinar, our teams can reach out to you. You can fix up maybe a brainstorming session, which can be a virtual meeting, or it could also be a physical meeting at our office, which can be organized. And so the webinar at 12 o'clock is a brand from Chennai, which is called Moor Market. They already have about 4 locations running in Chennai, very, I think good locations, which includes largely the malls in Chennai, and they have 1 location which they're currently operating in Bangalore. So I'll request, we have the founder, Mr. Zaruk, who's coming and presenting today's opportunity. So I'll request all of you to please register yourself for this webinar and understand the business model at large. So thank you so much, friends, for being with us today.